everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and after a long time, Mr. Tom Rose joined today's session. Today, just we discuss about you with some of the media personality in South Asia. So, what's going on, and what you want to share about AI and emerging tech, and how it can help each others. Uh, what will happen in the future?
Yeah, well, I understood that the subject today was going to be about how AI is helping relief efforts, and I had some opinions on that. And luckily, I have Tuesdays and Wednesdays off now because I've been in management at FedEx, and so luckily one of these subjects lined up with something that I have an opinion about. And we know that AI has been very helpful in relief, disaster relief. By it can locate open routes. It can help people find each other. It's a great tool, especially through social media, to find victims, to just seek patterns that either are happening on the ground or can be predictive. They can see patterns in weather or earthquakes and really identify preventative measures. Um, so AI has been an excellent tool for disaster relief. Even Twitter, for a long time, was a very valuable tool. Most people are on that. It's a very valuable social media platform. But recently, it's in a transition now, so it hasn't been very helpful when it comes to, like, say, the earthquake in Turkey and Syria, and because they've lost 80% of their engineers for different reasons. They are trying to monetize API, application programming interfaces. These APIs allow NGOs and nonprofits and governments to exchange data, valuable data, especially in the time of a disaster. And since Twitter is now kind of moving toward locking that down and making it and monetizing it, it hasn't been very helpful during this last disaster in Turkey and Syria. And so that's a big issue. And I've got a lot of other ancillary ideas about why this happens in general. But yeah, I think AI is a valuable tool, and this is where it's really, I think, one of the most, where it really comes into play, and why I've been on this campaign of trying to alleviate the fear of AI for years, almost a decade now, and because it's such a valuable tool. And it's not really that we need to be afraid of AI. We need to be afraid of AI developers. We need to work on ethics for AI developers, that type of thing. And so this is a great example of how AI can work when it comes to a time of a disaster. We need it. We need this tool to either seek the patterns to avoid these disasters, to help governments and NGOs find open routes or where routes are blocked, to actually help find victims. And so this is the best tool. And sometimes necessity is the mother of invention, but in this case, the invention is really a valuable necessity in times of disaster. And so I think we're seeing that AI makes everything much more convenient when it comes to GPS, and a lot of us don't even know how to get to a place without GPS anymore. We don't really pay attention to the streets and things like that. So there's a convenience that AI brings us that has helped it filter into us and make our lives more convenient and easier. But in times of disaster, it's a very valuable tool, and we need to rely on it more. We need to stop being afraid of it. And this is a great example of when it's the most useful. So that's kind of my initial thoughts about AI disaster. I was hoping more people would join so I could report to class here and learn some stuff. But yeah, but in general, uh, I think we're really, it's all the rage now. And everyone's talking about AI. They're talking about AI generative art. They're talking about Chat GPT, and it's just really become the global conversation. And and it's great. I mean, and there's going to be, it's out of hand now. It's going to be, either people are going to fear it or not. There's a bias that's built into us that you're either going to see it as a threat. whatever is going to happen next is going to happen. But I am working towards what we did here. That to human computers.
So Tom, I cannot hear you clearly.
Oh, is it the microphone?
Now it's okay.
Huh. Okay. I'll get a little closer to it. Hi, David.
Hey, how are y'all?
Good. Glad you joined.
Yeah, yeah,
It's running out of things to
yes,
say.
yeah. So we miss your last 2 3 minute conversation. So you want to add, Mr. Tom?
Yeah, I was just for David. I was just talking about how important AI is during a time of disaster, and although even through social media, how it helps us find patterns, how it helps NGOs and nonprofits and governments interplay through API, and how they can really help one another. But Twitter lately has not been really um, pulling its weight when it comes to this because they're trying to monetize API and they've lost 80% of their engineers, this type of thing. So, but I was just saying how in time of disasters when we really need AI and we really understand its power.
Well,
Thank you.
particularly in predictive analytics too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Mr. David Smith, what you want to share about how AI and emerging tech are helping the relief effort?
Well, you just see examples of this time and time again. You know, if you go and look at the Turkey-Syria earthquake, AI was used extensively in that disaster of trying to begin to uh, look at how to assist those that were affected by the earthquake, and it's really there. It's been used from analyzing satellite imagery. It's been used from analyzing data from sensors. It's been used to try to optimize the logistics of getting people and supplies into it. Um, One of the most interesting uses of it was AI was used with large scale, high resolution imaging of the area to look at the infrastructure and the infrastructure damage. And AI algorithms were used to analyze the areas and prioritize the areas that needed immediate assistance in the infrastructure deployment. And AI was linked with drones, and drones were deployed to survey the damage and collect data on it. And they were used to create they were equipped with sensors and cameras to capture images and create maps of it. Then AI was used to analyze it and provide real time information about the extent of the damage and provide real time, and this is the important part, real time information to the relief workers to prioritize what they're doing to help direct it there. um, Another place in that disaster where AI and particularly machine learning and natural language processing was used extensively was to analyze social media and other online sources to gain insights into the needs of the people affected by the earthquake. And this let remote relief organizations to analyze and quickly identify the most pressing needs of the affected population and to really respond with what needed to be done. And you begin to see other places where it has been used throughout the Turkey Syria earthquake disaster. And that is just a great example of how AI and technology can be used to immediately go and make an impact in information and responses. And it really has allowed in that environment the relief efforts to be much more effective. But the other side benefit of it is creating this huge AI database to help emergency responders prepare better for future events. And it's also for, particularly in this part of the world, it is letting the high resolution imaging in Turkey, Syria begin to be used to plot not just the relief efforts, but the recovery efforts, and begin to make plans to streamline bringing in resources to repair buildings, build new buildings, repair infrastructure. And that is one of the uses that I think AI is well suited for, is to go and meet those type of needs, and it's a force multiplier. You could have humans looking at the images and then trying to do the prioritization and things, but to have AI doing it in multiple AI streams is just a force multiplier that particularly can help in disasters like that one. So, Sharif, I think that's an example I think is very applicable to this.
Thank you. Mr. Tom Rose, you are working with the AI company, and recently you see that many natural disasters happening in Turkey and Syria. I saw the same thing in Bangladesh last few days. So how these kind of countries they can take more like support or benefit from AI, or how we can make this kind of AI available for emerging economy.
Well, yeah, emerging economies, developing the developing world, I think have a real advantage. We've talked about this before, how um, because in the developed countries, if you will, America or the Western countries, there's a status quo and there's a resistance to anything new. When an emerging company, you have if you have a government that is innovative, they're not held back by the status quo. They're not held back by technological infrastructure that wants to stay in place. Lobbyists, groups of people that want to keep things as they are to keep their profit margins high. That's why I've always said that the developing countries have a real advantage right now in taking on this new technology. I talked to somebody a while ago who said Philippines has some of the latest technology available, and it's because they've got all the new stuff, and they didn't have this infrastructure and these the status quo issues going on. So there's a real opportunity for smart, innovative governments to bring in this stuff who don't have the kinds of like I said, barriers that we have here. There's a lot of growth potential. There's a lot going on in America. There's a lot of startups and things, and so there's a really a wave toward new innovative technologies, and there's always going to be a place for that. But then again, you'll have at some point when it gets to a massive technological advent, you might have lobbyists that work against it. That are companies that are already in place that don't want to change things, and or they don't want the competition, and so developing countries, smart developing country governments have a real advantage if they understand it this way, and bring it in and share it with their people, and allow for startups, allow for innovative entrepreneurs, and just have a good ecosystem based on that. So that's how I feel about developing countries and the real advantage that they have.
Thank you, Mr. David Smith.
Well, Tom is 100% right in that you begin to look at the advantage of being nimble, of not having a lot of bureaucracy. And in times of disaster, bureaucracy is both a curse and a blessing. And the ability to be able to combine both of them is very interesting. But the other thing is you begin to look about technology and relief efforts is one of the biggest changes we've seen in relief efforts from, say, 50 years ago, 25 years ago, is the amount of connectivity we have for relief efforts. We have satellite-based communications that will work independently of the ground infrastructure that might have been destroyed. Um, we see the ability to rapidly bring in temporary mobile cell phone towers. And in many disasters, the old landlines are not working, but you see the mobile phones with these temporary setup communications working and being very effective in helping uh, meet the needs there. And there's still barriers to overcome there, but it's interesting if you look uh, from the start of this century, over 6.5 billion people worldwide have been affected by natural disasters and humanitarian crisis, and you see that going. But like I said, one of the big things there is today, uh, people throughout the world are connected as the mobile communication industry extends its coverage. And it's vital that when disaster hits, uh, mobile networks are not only resistant to uh, commercial losses, but it's oftentimes one of the first means of communications outside of a ham radio that is up and working. And you see that tremendously. Uh, for example, if you go back and look at some of the earthquakes in Italy, the earthquakes in Nepal, and others, the mobile phones were there, and even base text messaging can really serve as me. Also, the other thing is you look at these mobile devices and the data is that we're seeing that technology has been a fantastic way of providing cash transfers to people from not only getting money into uh, agencies that are trying to help, that we're seeing that in the context there, that family and friends and others are transferring money to people affected. And you see some NGOs actually, like the International Rescue Committee, are delivering digital cash aid to refugees in some of the most effective disaster areas. Another place where you wouldn't think about it, but where AI and emerging technology really has an impact is on helping you establish your identity. You lose in many of these natural disasters all your papers, your identification. You can use technology to do that. And particularly in the developed nations, but increasingly in the developing nations, you then, once you establish your digital identity, you have access to healthcare records. You have access to banking records today since we've moved to digital and all that. And again, it's one of the places that you don't really think about it, but if you cannot identify yourself, you're more likely to face barriers or delays when attempting to get aid, to cross a border, or to get mobile services, or even healthcare without your identity. So this type of technology is really being uh, used and tested really well. It's we're beginning to see even things like barcode technology being used in disasters, where the refugees and the survivors are given a barcode, and you can verify who they are, what conditions they have, what are some of the things they need, such as food, clothing, or cash. And what's interesting with some of these apps, and particularly one that was used by UNICEF, is the app does not show the individual's name, but it shows their identity and what they need. So your some privacy is protected. And you just see it in so many places that it's there. And the other thing that you don't think about with this type of disaster is that the artificial intelligence and this digital technology actually helps the survivors uh, reestablish their lives. They feel more protected. They are able to reach out to a network of people to assist them in recovery. And AI is an excellent tool to use with them, and through facial recognition, image recognition, voice recognition, as well as traditional typing, be able to help understand what they need, help understand how They need to connect to relatives around the world or find their people who are still in the disaster area. So there's a wide range of where this technology can be used for benefits.
Mr. Tom Rose, like for developing this kind of technology, what type of preparations or training the population need, especially this natural disaster is continuing around the
Well, I
world.
think other than the actual technical training that someone would need to understand how to use this stuff or understand how to produce it, I think the real training needs to just be in our human qualities, those human skills and the skill sets that we have that can't be coded or automated. We need to really focus on those. I think AI and all this technology really enables our better angels, especially in the time of a disaster. I remember I worked in radio back during Katrina, and we had a station, radio station there, WWL, that that was the only radio station that was able to stay on the air during and after the in the aftermath of Katrina, and and we had DJs and personalities that stayed on air, that stayed even during the hurricane with the windows blowing in and everything, who were who were helping people know where to go, or were just listening to people. Unfortunately, and many times in their last broadcast or in their last communication with somebody before they were killed or died in some way, and it just we realized at that time that that radio, which was the only real technology that could stay on at all during that time. That's why it's really important for everyone to have a radio. You know, even though you have your cell phones and whatnot, those can go down. Cell towers and things like that. Radio is very important still, and especially in times of crisis and disaster. And so, what I think all of this does is it's really important just to whatever technology is being used, is we need to focus on this human skill sets, our compassion, our the qualia that we have. That seems like intuition, it seems like psychic abilities, but there's nothing magic about this. It's just the stimuli that we take in all the time and we process subconsciously, and it looks like we're having a psychic impression, but it's not. It's just a matter of all this data that is filtering through our consciousness. So we need to focus on those things. I've been saying that, and I'm flipping my whole campaign now from trying to get people to stop being afraid of AI to start focusing on our niche expertise, the things that we come into this life with, that we that have rarely have anything to do with our job titles. You know, we have a certain quality, a certain capability that we all come in with that really needs to be focused on right now. And so I think it's really about other than the technical training that's necessary for people to produce AI and to produce these communication networks, it's about focusing again on retraining ourselves, retraining people to be human. What were we doing? What were we developing before the industrial age mechanized us? Before it turned us into cogs in some wheel, which was probably necessary for civilization. We put a lot of these qualities on hold, and they're still dormant in us. And now that AI is taking over all of our menial tasks, and it's making life more convenient, and it's robotics will take over all of these assembly line jobs and everything. We need to create a whole second economy based on these unique human skill sets um, that can't be coded and they can't be automated. So we really need to start. And we're looking at now, even though Chat GPT, and there's a lot of professors and teachers that are complaining that students are turning in papers and they can't tell that they are written by Chat GPT, right? For me, this just means that we need to change the whole paradigm of training and teaching and how we're teaching students, these digital natives particularly. And so it's forcing us to get back to what we were doing before the industrial age. It's forcing us to really hone our Jedi powers, if you will, the things that we have that no AI can have or should have at some point. We have, we're walking around with these supercomputers in our brains, and where they're not being used to their full extent. So it's a great augmentation. I'm seeing what's happening is AI is going to augment us by taking over all of these menial tasks. You know, I was thinking about this a couple of years ago when I was shoveling my driveway, and I couldn't think about anything interesting or think about philosophy or religion or any of that stuff because I was too busy working. And it just came to mind while I was shoveling my driveway that this is why we can't move forward, because if I had an AI robot that can come out here and shovel this, I'd have more time to think about more interesting things. And I think we're in this lacuna, we're in this period of time where we're seeing displacement in jobs and we're seeing AI come in and take over certain things, but it's what we do best. Nobody likes change, but that's what really we do best. That's how we survived, as a species, is our adaptability. And so it's an inflection point now where AI is pushing us forward again. And so we're going to see a lot of pushback. A lot of people are afraid of it. They see it as a threat. But what it's really doing is allowing us to move toward, I think, the next golden age of our species, allowing us to get back to some of these qualities that we've always had that have been dormant. The whole educational system was gearing us to work in factories. There was one manager, one teacher up front, and we were all sitting in a row. We were just getting prepared to work in a factory, and that was probably a necessary phase for our civilization to go through. But now we've got somebody doing the heavy lifting for us now, so we can start thinking about our qualities that no AI can or probably will ever need to match. And so I think we're just starting this lacuna, this phase of time where it's going to be very difficult to try to reposition ourselves. But if we're smart and we start focusing now on either developing countries and how they're handling bringing in this new technology, or we start listening to the digital natives, the kids, the younger people, and what it is they need, then we will get through this. And so that's going to be my next campaign, rather than trying to alleviate the fear of AI, because that bias is already set one way or the other. It's going to be, now let's focus on our niche expertise. Let's focus on what it is that we bring to the party that no AI can or should or really would need to bring in. And so these times of disaster, whether it's Katrina with the technology of radio, or it's the Turkey Syrian earthquakes with AI and how it's helping, these are just these technologies just really facilitate, they enable our better angels. They enable the best part of being human. We rush to people who are in danger. If there's stories of people who may have been trying to commit suicide, or they're about to fall off a cliff, and somebody would just save them, and they don't know why they're saving them. It's just our instinct is to save each other. And so these disasters, as horrible as they can be, really show us who we really are. And so it's time to start seeing these technologies as enabling our better nature. And when you talk about training, yes, definitely training, more training in programming and AI development. But more so with everybody else, with the 80% of everybody else, is to remember what it's like to be human. Remember, retrain ourselves to do what we were doing before the industrial age put all these qualities um, in hibernation.
Mhm. Thank you. Professor David Smith.
Well, Sharif, the other thing that I've seen with technology, particularly if I go and look at the Turkey Syria background, is that you've seen people from very small, particularly youth, step up and become very innovative and produce materials. For example, in Turkey, some of the youth developed extremely, very, very basic HTML sites so that they would load quicker and not take as much resources. And they created open source crisis assisted websites. And what's interesting in the Turkey example is some of these things that the youth developed on very basic things have now been funded as startups, and can spread outside the region to help others in disaster. The other thing that struck me in looking at the role of large companies, you've seen, for example, Microsoft Turkey. make all of their products freely available to those groups operating in the disaster zone. And you've seen satellite imagery being delivered to people at no cost by some of the larger companies so that they could help. You've seen um, satellite based internet and communications being delivered at no cost to the people in the disaster areas to really disasters bring out the best and worst of people, really. But in this instance, we've seen the efforts from the youth with starting applications and things just because they saw a need that need to be met, to large companies for giving some of the profit motive and opening up their products to be used in the disaster area. It's just very interesting, and it's those efforts that really help the emerging technology and the AI, and particularly some of the augmented reality, even being used in these disasters to affect good for humanity. And that is so important in times like this. If I just look in Turkey, Syria alone, I haven't checked the latest death toll, but last time I looked, it was approaching 50,000 people had died. And a huge disaster over uh, a, a, a area of over well, hundreds of thousands of square miles. So it's a wide area disaster that takes a lot of effort, and particularly using AI and imaging tools and facial recognition where people do not have IDs and things is a great way to help speed up relief and help people begin to recover from this really, a couple of very horrible large earthquakes. So, Sharif, there's that old saying, it takes a village. This is a place where it's not only took a village, it took a global world effort to respond to it. And these are some of the ways that technology can be used to pull people closer together and show that the good is still in place around the world, as opposed to the bad like we see in the Ukraine Russia war. So, again, very interesting applications. And it's a great way to see that the tools are useful in so many different contexts, and how tools like AI and the emerging technology is truly only limited by our imagination. And even the examples of these youth doing these very low basic HTML websites because people are accessing on their phone, or they could be still trapped in Rumble. And we've seen some websites like that. We've seen basic text messaging used to create heat maps and help find where people are. We've seen AI tools produce large area heat maps to pinpoint where the most critical needs are for rescue efforts, for example. So it's a big range of technology that can be used. And I'm going to say it again, it's only limited by our imagination.
Mr. Tom Rose, I think our audience has some interest because last conference we finished with 72 projects in Bangladesh with around 300 researchers and from all of the important government agencies, corporation, academy, they join. For our audience, definitely it's one of the mega event in South Asia. We have another mega event in India. We are planning to bring 50,000 people in India, especially in Delhi. So I want to invite you both, and definitely they're gonna sponsor your uh, necessary things. But my things is that they have more interest about Chat GPT, advanced general intelligence, quantum computing. So, do you want to share some of your views about this new innovation?
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to see a lot of this happening. And I think like I'm saying, my campaign is moving away from trying to alleviate the fear of AI. Those biases are embedded; they're set. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I did what I could to
That's true.
to you know turn the tide or be a trim tab toward alleviating the fear. But now I think it's going to be very important, first of all, just to listen to digital natives, listen to younger people, millennials and younger, for what they need and what they're interested in. We're seeing a hive mind that's developing. I talked about this before, how we're seeing definitions of things shifting. And one example is people my age and Generation X and older would define freedom as complete autonomy, complete self property rights, and things like that. Where now we're seeing younger people that are defining freedom as the more groups that they're involved with, the more um, you know social media groups that they're in touch with, the freer they feel. It's kind of an anonymity thing, that they feel more free with the more people that they're involved with. So it's like those kinds of definitions are shifting, and I think it's a very uh, positive shift that we're seeing happening. We need a hive mind. We need younger people to work together. We need younger people um, to work with AI more succinctly and more integrated, because we're going to need to solve some major existential threats. And so a lot of people who have opinions, whether there's negative about AI or negative about young people, are my age or older, and because we're basing it on our analog childhoods, or basing it on systems and paradigms that no longer work. And so my focus is going to be now first on focusing on young people and what they need, what they're looking at. There's a lot of studies about how you need to have less screen time. But if you stop and you look at what these kids are doing when they're at the dinner table looking at their phones, sure, it's maddening. But if you focus on what they're actually doing, is they are communicating with a vast amount of people. They're communicating with their freedom, and what they define as freedom. And so we need to stop complaining about this. Just as parents complain, and my parents would have complained about punk rock, and their parents would have complained about rock and roll. There's always something to complain about, but that's what the youth does: is they find that point of rebellion and work it. And so, but we need to get beyond that. We need to stop um, looking for the problems, because resistance only you know births persistence. What you resist persists, right? And so we need to stop doing that. We need to start looking and understanding that there's a major shift happening with our species, with this civilization right now, and we need it to happen, because of the ideas we have, and the paradigm fixes that used to work no longer work. Everything's got to be iconoclastic. We've got to try all kinds of new things. I'm proposing this with the USTP, with the United States Transhumanist Party, that instead of having debates, let's have roundtables. Let's get beyond all of this conflict issues. It's not working for us anymore. We need to find cooperation. And that's one of the first principal arguments that I put forward for why we shouldn't fear AI. And my adage is that, the smarter it gets, the kinder it becomes, because it moves towards cooperation. And so we need to take that as a cue, that how we should work. If we want to be smarter, if we want to solve these existential threats, we need to be more cooperative, be less confrontational, get the ego out of the room. And so, my interest in coming to India, or any of these organizations, and any of these opportunities, is to focus on the young people, what they're talking about. I had an opportunity a couple years ago to go to Kigali, Africa, and see a whole, it was a continent-wide conference that they had in Kigali. And so I was seeing young people from all over Africa come in, and they're very excited. It kind of revitalized my interest in the world. Um, so, uh, and in young people. And we need Africa to really seize their fourth industrial revolution, because if they don't, if the employment issues continue there, it will have ripple effects around the world. So anyway, there's a real necessary reason to focus on millennials and younger people and what it is they need, and to facilitate those needs. And so, if I'm coming to India, or if I'm wherever I'm going to go, I'm going to be focusing on what the young people are talking about, what they need, and how I can help facilitate it. That's all I have to say
Thank you,
about
Mr.
that.
David Smith.
You know,
Can you
the topic today is such a good one
hear me?
in that it's going to the heart of human needs and suffering and how technology can be used there. I think the biggest thing to say, Sharif, on this, and I'd love to hear what Dr. Talib has to say, is that we've seen great examples of individuals, of corporations, of governments putting aside their own biases, of, like I said earlier, being extremely innovative in times of crisis, and even forgiving the profit motive. You know, to see companies like Microsoft Turkey just give away their products for free to use in disasters like this, satellite companies and others, warms my heart and what we can do. And Sharif, as we talk really about the World Talent Economic Forum and the focus of it on the human capital, the focus on it on how to create more innovation, of how to create more good for each of the developing nations, and help people go to a market, seeing disasters and how relief efforts can pull people together, I think is a really a testament to the power of the human spirit, the power of the human capital. And people are the key to making technology effective. People are the key to helping train artificial intelligence. Um, and Sharif, I have to compliment the job that the World Talent Economic Forum does in serving that need of educating people, pulling people together, giving people ideas. And that is the catalyst where people can rise to the top of the pile and help people who are in need, like in this relief effort. So, Sharif, I think all of all of us and you with efforts like this are part of the ecosystem that makes this type of relief efforts really happen and excel compared to what was there in the past. So, Sharif, thank you so much for letting me talk about this today.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Talib Rafael, what you want to
Yeah,
discuss about
I
AI
need the link.
and emerging
You
tech?
need. Can you send me the link by email, please? Can you send me the
Okay,
link, Sharif?
yes, I can. Yes.
Okay.
Uh, Mr. Tom, yeah,
Yes.
yes. I think you have a plan to go for uh, US president's campaign. So we want to collaborate with you and we want to do a series with you. Uh, you are working like you're with AI and human, and you want to attend in the election campaign with your AI. How does it work? What is your plan?
Well, the niche I've been working in is with companies right and their employees right before they install an AI coworker or an automated system, because we'll find that employees will often work against these things. They see it as a threat and they think their jobs are on the line. And so that's the niche I've been working on for the last 10 years since my TEDx talk called Open Source Mode. And I turned that into a management consulting system. Um, 10 years ago, if I said, I put a post up the other day that in the TEDx talk, I said an unnamed decision maker outside the room, because if I said what I meant then 10 years ago, I would have been laughed off the big red circle, because I was talking about knowing that an AI coworker at some point would be reality. We're seeing that now. We're seeing now people are there. I wouldn't get laughed off the circle at this point, because with Chat GTP and people are, there's a lot more emphasis on how AI is helping businesses. And so that whole I turned that talk and that whole concept into a management consulting service for the last 10 years. And it's about preparing human beings to work with an AI coworker and not to be threatened by it, but to see it as an augmentation. And that whole system is what I'm focusing on now. And that's about finding each individual's niche expertise. And the example I often use is you can have a reception. You need to involve everybody in this process, from the CEO to the receptionist. And because, and you when you bring that receptionist in, you don't talk to her as a receptionist that by in that parameter. You talk to her, and you may find out that she is a classically trained cellist at night and the weekends, and you speak to her in that genius mode or wherever she excels. And again, we have these niche expertise, these skills that rarely have anything to do with our job titles, unfortunately. But now I think with AI, we'll be able to focus more on having jobs that really cater to our passions. But so my focus is now going to be on helping people find that niche expertise. And now we have all these platforms that we can monetize our passions on, whether it's Etsy or YouTube or all these ways to start taking advantage of making money out of or monetizing our passions. And so that's going to be my focus now is moving away from trying to alleviate the fear of AI and moving into really focusing on how we can identify our bliss, our niche expertise. And there's a simple question that I ask in these groups first, and that is, what skill, talent, or area of knowledge do you have that you wish more people recognize? And you wish more people recognize it because it has been suppressed in some way. Maybe you were a great artist as a kid, but that was but your parents, when they'd say, well, you're not going to make money at doing art, so you kind of suppress that. But that's your real skill, that's your real love, and so you may be an accountant, but you used to love to draw. And so it's a point of focusing in on the reasons you're here, the things that really give you passion, now that we have platforms to monetize those. And so it's part that, it's part asking that question, that what I call the bliss question. What skill, talent, or area of knowledge do you have that you wish more people recognize? And you wish people recognize it because it's been suppressed. But once you ask yourself that question, give yourself a few days to keep asking that question. It really unveils a treasure trove of motivation for you. And now we have AI, and we have platforms, and we have tools to really focus on these things. So that's a piece of what I'm working on now. It's the piece of the open source mode management consulting system that I developed. And so I'm going to be focusing more on that. I've even on this show, I've been in moods where it's like, you know, the best thing humans can do is be the biological bootloaders for AI, and I get in this sort of anti-natalist kind of vibe where I've lost faith in humanity. But I'm trying to come out of that. I really am, because I think I love humanity so much that it's disheartening when I see egos and people acting out in different ways. And so I am moving away from that anti-natalist vibe to really focusing on my love for humanity and how to bring us out of this in my way, in my own little way. And so that's what I'll be doing more so than focusing on just AI, is focusing on us, on humans, and our unique skill sets, and the qualia and the supercomputers we're walking around within our brains that are not being used, and so that's really going to be my focus now moving forward, is on humans more so than just AI.
Definitely, World Talent Economy Forum, we want to work with you. Uh, we need to develop the skill set of the youth communities, and we need to solve many complex problems. Dr. Talib Rafael, I already sent you the stream here, so you can join. Mr. David Smith, what you want to add?
Um, Sharif, this is such an important topic. It's hard to say more than what has been said, because we're looking at the elements of how we could use this for good. And I am really hopeful that we see the Internet of Things sensors begin to be used in relief efforts. The ability to go in and very rapidly deploy thermal sensors, vibration sensors, uh, be able to build mesh networks where networks have been destroyed, the ability to set up facial recognition stations to help family members find other family members and use AI technology to do rapid recognition and begin to look at probabilities. I'm very excited to see AI being used in disaster efforts like this because it's not every day that a community has to respond to an earthquake. And the first responders can use AI to enhance what they're doing. The medical professionals doing triage and doing surgery and reconstruction surgery after it can use AI and tools. I am also very hopeful that we begin to see the use of 3D printing in relief efforts to rapidly build infrastructure using advanced technology as opposed to some of the methods which takes much longer to construct things back. Um, so again, it's a full suite of technologies. Drones, drones have dramatically changed how we respond to relief efforts and being able to provide real-time information back to assist the relief efforts. So the technology is actually being used very broadly here. And one of the greatest trends we've seen in technology over the last decade is the rapid decrease in cost of technology. The ability for open source products to have the maturity to be used very broadly and freely. And that is a trend I think will continue. I was part of a hackathon a couple of years ago, and the purpose of the hackathon was to develop AI-based tools to use in times of emergency. And I think we're going to continue to see those. I have no doubt that one or two of the people who participated in that hackathon probably have products that were used in Syria and Turkey with this earthquake effort. Uh, and we will see those. One of the last hurricanes that struck Texas, we saw a lot of these open source tools used to provide relief. And I think that's the other trend here, Sharif. It's not just the commercial products, it's the open source ones. It's like the kids in Turkey being innovative on the spot and meet needs that most of us would not consider because the fact that very low overhead websites are not our norm. They're really the big exception. And I hope that encourages us as we develop websites today to actually have a mode where we can break the glass and take some of the complexity away and use them in places where there's constrained resources and constrained bandwidth. And those are some of my thoughts, Sharif, on how we need to go forward with this.
Thank you. Dr. Talib Rafal, what's your concluding remarks for
Okay.
today's session?
I think I missed what Timurs and David had said, but what I want to say is the following: AI is a new technology. It will help us definitely in our relief efforts, but relief efforts are connected now to politics. Politics is not very easy nowadays, and AI would be part of that political game that many countries like to play. For example, David spoke about the earthquake in Turkey and Syria. People are talking about Turkey, but they're not talking about Syria. Syria has been more damaged and has suffered a lot. But because the United States doesn't want us to speak about Syria anymore, so many people talk about the earthquake only as Turkey. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tom Rose, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
Yeah, that's the issue is when politics gets involved. with any sort of disaster, and that's why I think, unfortunately, disasters do bring out the best in what humanity is. But too often, the ego gets in, and the politics gets involved, and it just really throws everything off. But yeah, I think my concluding remark would be that we've seen how technology really enables our better angels at the moment. Later, politics, ego get involved, and we lose those better angels. We lose that human quality that we all have. And
Very true.
unfortunately, it takes a disaster to understand who we are, and and who is courageous, and what technologies work best. Like I was saying earlier, and during Katrina, it was radio. It was radio that was able to become the voice of New Orleans at the time, and to listen to people and to help them. And so it's really important to understand which technologies work best in times of disaster. Often it's radio still, and but also that to understand that these technologies, be it AI, be it radio, whatever it is, in times of disaster can really enable our best qualities, and and unfortunately, when the disaster is over, then the ego kicks in, and those people who are afraid, who are driven by ego, will come in and start, messing things up. But we don't want to have a continual disaster going on all the time to be in our better space. And so I think it's just really important to start thinking in a global, as a species, as a planetary tribe, and get beyond all of these, the ideas of borders and whatnot. I'm not a, and so that's really my point here today, is how AI and in any disaster, technology can really enable us, to show our better angels.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Tom Ross. As you are launching your electoral campaign as a president for USA, so we want to do a series with you. So hopefully our young generations can learn a lot of interesting things, uh, and maybe it's create some fun for them. So maybe from next week we can start this campaign with you.
Yeah, I'm still considering that for the USCP, running for that nomination, but using it knowing that I won't be president in 2025, but just to use that as a forum for having some really important
Yeah.
conversations. Yeah.
And this month we have a very special conference with Indian foreign minister, foreign business and ICT ministry, and they have a plan to bring 50,000 tech guys in one place. So people from 199 different countries, they will come and they will join. So I share invitation with all of our speakers. So it will be sponsored by the Indian government. So if you come, definitely we can meet together. And we have our conference on Nikola Tesla Technology Conference this coming July in Dhaka. So it will be another interesting event for everyone. I'm sure we can organize a lot of fun and good networking session. Professor David, yes. Professor David Smith, what's your concluding remarks for today?
Well, Sharif, thanks again for letting me be part of the session today. As we've said several times, it's great seeing technology being used for good. And in many instances in relief efforts, it's being used uh, without regard for profit and without regard for our own self-interest, but for helping the greater good. Uh, some of the technology being used in the current relief efforts globally have become so powerful. To be able to look at how we use drones, how we use satellite images, how we use artificial intelligence, image recognition, thermal imaging, vibration imaging, extreme sound pickup and analysis today to pick up signals. Um, you know, and to realize that those technologies to do a lot of that have been invented very recently and applied recently. It's fantastic to see this type of technology being used to alleviate human pain and suffering and to help aid a recovery effort. it brings out the best in people, and I want to celebrate that. Also, it gives us great insights of how technology can be used as well to treat the common people and the poorest of the poor as well as the more wealthy. So it can be an equalizing force as well. So Sharif, thank you again so much for letting me be part of this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
It's an
Sharif.
excellent,
Thank you, Dr.
excellent
Sharif.
discussion. Dr. Talib Rafal, any advice for emerging economy from your side?
No, no, I just want to echo what David said. It's important to recognize that technology can bring the best out of people. If we take politics out of it, of course. But technology nowadays, is in the hands of certain powers in this world, unfortunately. And what Mr. Tomros has talked about, which is radio. Radio is not a modern technology, but it's something that we could use, and we are using in our parts of the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Especially, we had a very, very important dialogue with the Prime Minister's Chief Advisor, Dr. Salman F. Rahman. He is a Vice President of Beximco Group. So, everyone from Bangladesh, they send their regards to you and all of our speakers. And beside that, I want to share World Talent Economy Forum support Dhaka University to develop their uh, editorial panel for scientific research. So those who are interested to join in this editorial panel, you can send your resume. It will be very exclusive. In this panel, Central Bank Bangladesh Governor, Stock Exchange Commission Chairman, uh, Chief Advisors of Prime Ministers, Vice Chancellors, Deans, all of the famous people from Asia participate in this panel. So I'm sure it will be a lot of interesting research project based in and will be great networking for everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharif. You're doing a great job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sorry. You're frozen, Sharif. Bye. I'm sorry, Sharif, I was late. I had another Zoom on women. I'm sorry, Sharif. Thank you.